Hello and welcome to Focus Westerville. I'm your host, John Buckles. As you drive around Westerville, have you ever wondered who fills the potholes or plows the snow, replaces signs, maintains our water lines, and ensures that the trash and the recycling gets hauled away? The city's award-winning public service department is responsible for all that and more. Our service department is one of only a few in Ohio and about 100 cities in the country that is fully accredited. And Service Director Kevin Weaver says it's a big accomplishment.
It's been excellent. I couldn't be more pleased with the organization and how the team functions. Our accreditation says a great deal for us. I'm very proud of our accreditation. We were only the third operation in Ohio to become accredited by APWA. It really is a big deal in terms of transparency and ensuring value for the citizens. The things that we deal with at the Department of Public Service are street maintenance, utility maintenance, environmental maintenance. We take care of cemeteries, and we also have a fleet maintenance operation which takes care of the 400 or so pieces of equipment and vehicles within the city. Snow is our number one feedback item. The cooperation from the other departments was a very pleasant surprise. So we have people from Parks and Recreation and planning and electric all pitch in and help us out with snow removal. The salt barn is a fairly recent addition. It allows us to store about 7,000 tons of salt on site, so that allows us to make sure that even if there is a crunch in terms of supply, that we are able to purchase at better pricing than we might otherwise. The building here at 370 Park Meadow was completed roughly a year ago. It is a fantastic facility and we are very proud of it. We have about 23,000 square feet of space in the back, which we can store approximately 25 vehicles in. That is a big deal in terms of emergency preparedness and being ready to go. We've also found that you get an additional 3 to 5 years of life out of the vehicles because they're not sitting out in the weather. We are extremely blessed to be in the position that we are. We get to come to work and play with big trucks for a living. We get to do things that are visible out in the community, and really we have the opportunity every day to make somebody's life better. My number one goal right now is to try to improve our accountability and make sure that when I look the taxpayers in the eye, of which I am one obviously, that I can say you're getting a great value for your dollar, and I can say that.
On this edition of Focus Westerville, we'll take a look at how the service department operates and meet a few of the skilled, hardworking members of the service team, starting with someone who helps you navigate around town.
Within the sign shop, our main function and responsibilities here is just that, signs. So that can be anything from speed limits, stop signs, street name signs, basically any kind of sign that you see in the city. Everything from start to finish, from making them to installing them, we take care of here. When you're dealing with them on a day in and day out basis, you realize we have thousands and thousands and thousands of signs that I'm responsible for. So it's a big responsibility just being working by myself. We do make a lot of stuff in-house to try to keep costs down. Things like speed limit signs or stop signs that are fairly low in cost and that we use a ton of. We'll order those, but we do have a lot of signs. I would say probably 80% of what we do is made in-house. We're replacing all of the street name signs per code from the Ohio MUTCD for basically legibility and readability purposes. Currently now, all of our street name signs have capital letters throughout the entire word or the name of the street, where now the new code or the new standard is an initial uppercase letter and then followed by lowercase letters. It's supposed to be easier to read for motorists. Everybody in Westerville sees my work, so if I put a sign up and it's leaning over or it's not straight, or if there's a bunch of bubbles potentially in it, or just anything that's wrong with the signs, or if there's some that aren't replaced yet that need replaced, that's just a reflection on me. It's just like a personal thing, and I take pride in what I do. And I want to make sure it's done right and done to the best of my ability. Okay, so today what we're doing is replacing a street name sign at the intersection of College Crest and Old Coach. I'll go into Sign Lab, and that is basically our sign design program and how the street name signs get made. Now that we've finished the design of the sign on the computer, we're going to grab our 6x36-inch sign blank that we're going to use for the street name sign and then start the manufacturing process. So the next step in the process is to actually cover the sign blank with the sheeting. I'm going to peel out each individual letter here to create that white effect, or the white letters that we're looking for on the street name sign. From here, the next step is to actually apply the film. Once I'm happy with that, I can go ahead and peel my pre-spacing tape off. That is a completed street name sign for the city of Westerville.
There's no doubt the sign shop is an important asset in the city. Next up, if you're like me, you know the challenge of trying to maintain your car and keep it on the road at the lowest possible cost. Can you imagine the job of doing that for over 250 vehicles? One employee with the Westerville Service Department oversees just that.
He's one of the friendliest people you're ever going to meet, very soft-spoken, excellent gentleman. He's a great mechanic.
Well, I've always been interested in messing with cars and vehicles, you know, and equipment. My job is to schedule in vehicles and make sure that they're all maintained and repaired. We have about 250 vehicles rolling stock. That includes everything from small cars and everything in between, from, you know, backhoes and skid steers and front loaders to the dump trucks you see right here with the snow plows on them. Well, this is one of our bays. This is probably the most used lift we have in the shop, because we do all the police cars here, and this one right here is one that we're working on, doing preventative maintenance on it. These stairs lead down to our pit, where we do preventative maintenance and repairs on bigger trucks and backhoes and loaders, things like that we need to do work underneath on those. This is the parts room. We have our stock of filters that we use all the time, hardware, batteries. For the fleet budget, we have a 5-year plan that we go out and we figure this vehicle needs to be replaced in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. And then when that year comes up, we will review it again and make sure that that still needs to be replaced. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. We always go out and get 2 or 3 quotes for like the oil we use and the fluids we use, that kind of thing, and tires. And we try to be good stewards with the city's money. Guys that work for me, they work hard, you know, especially the times when you really realize that is on like snow emergencies. This winter we've had several snow emergencies, and we get in here and you have to keep these things going. As they break, you fix them and get them back on the road as fast as you can.
It's wonderful to see another service department member take a great amount of pride in his work. It's a large responsibility to keep the city's vehicles out on the road, especially in winter. When snow is falling and 130 miles of Westerville streets need to be kept clear, Westerville's snow removal warriors spring into action.
We plowed almost 17,000 miles this past winter season.
This morning, we came in at 4 o'clock, the day shifts 4 a.m. to 4 p.m. So at the service department, basically we're broken down into 3 divisions, street, environmental, and utilities. And when it snows, all of those divisions kind of come together collectively to do snow removal. So there's not one dedicated set of people who just specifically do snow removal. We all do it. Everybody kind of chips in to do their own part here.
They've done a fantastic job for the amount of snow that we got, and the weather as cold as it's been. And streets were clear before everyone was getting ready to go to work in the morning.
Half of the department comes in from 4 a.m. to 4 p.m. and the other half of the guys come in from 4 p.m. to 4 a.m. And we just kind of stay on that 12-hour cycle until the event is over, and then we've got all the major roadways cleared and everything.
I think the city does a terrific job. Our streets are always clear. They're clear quickly, and just never have any problems.
We always start in the middle of the roadway and work our way towards the curb. What will happen is our first pass or two, we'll just plow, and then that last pass is when we'll throw salt. We don't want to salt and plow every time, because the second time you come around with your plow, you'll end up plowing the salt off that you just threw, so that's wasting salt, wasting money.
It's very easy to plow a big thoroughfare and knock that off very quickly, but it's a little more challenging to plow the cul-de-sacs.
When I drive up here, I live in the Northland area of Columbus, and on a wintry day, when it's dicey getting up to the Westerville boundaries, as soon as you move into Westerville, the streets are well taken care of.
The most difficult part about plowing in Westerville, probably if you're in a dump truck and a big truck and you have a main route, is going into the courts and getting turned around with cars parked in, I guess, the bubble area of the court. They don't really turn on a dime, so it's hard to maneuver those big trucks with a plow on and get in there and kind of maneuver around parked vehicles. If we know a snowstorm or snow event's coming, the night before, the day before, we will have our trucks like preloaded with salt.
The crews can come in, jump right in the trucks, back up and head out onto the street. They're ready to go. They can be preloaded without worrying about the rain getting into the salt and basically seizing it up into a big block in the back of the truck.
What a team effort. Well, in addition to snow removal, the Westerville Service Department also is in charge of maintaining more than 400 miles of pipelines, including our water, sanitary sewer, and stormwater systems. Let's learn a little bit about how they tackle this challenge.
The environmental maintenance supervisor here at the Service Department oversees several different things, namely the stormwater system. There are many EPA regulations that we have to follow in regards to operating as a city and making sure that we're doing the right thing for the environment. The city is made up of miles upon miles of storm line. In the winter, as far as our stormwater system goes, we do a lot of planning, getting ready for the spring, the construction period. Pipes move when the ground freezes and thaws and moves around like that. So if we come across any breaks or fractures in our line, that's when we start planning those repairs. One thing that I would like the residents to know about our stormwater system is that eventually that water does make it back into our homes. So every little thing that you can do to ensure that the only thing going in those stormwater systems is the stormwater would be helpful. If that means pulling your car onto a grassy area to wash it versus washing in your driveway, allowing that soap and all those detergents to be filtered through the soil, that's one little step that can be taken. A lot of times people just blow their grass clippings right down in the drains. That's a big no-no. Again, there's nitrogen in that grass. We don't want to have to treat that in our water. It all adds up. And when at the end of the day, when we have to come out and clean our system because there's maybe grease in it or old paint and stuff like that, and no one wants to see fish floating in our creeks and streams, but ultimately that's what it leads to. So that's what I would like to tell people. Just make sure anything goes down those drains is the storm water, and do whatever you can to ensure that that's the only thing that goes down those drains. We flush 200,000 feet of our sanitary lines a year. We have several different cameras. We have a camera that is mounted on, looks like a little tank that we actually drop the entire unit into our lines. So what we're looking for when we do these inspections are cracks in the line, offsets in pipe. You know, some of the infrastructure here in the city is getting old, so those are the areas that we focus on. Some of the things that our residents can look for when it comes to identifying issues in the sanitary system is anything out of the normal. Slow draining drains in their sinks, in their basements, whatnot. Smells, if you have a nasty smell that's typically not there, there's a good indication that might have something to do with our sanitary issues. If you feel as if you have an issue with your sanitary system, we're going to come out, we're going to check some things out, mainly our mains. And one of the first things we want to do, we pull a couple manhole lids, we look on our mains. If our main is flowing freely, there's a good chance it's in your lateral. And unfortunately, that's where the city's responsibility ends and where the residential responsibility begins. The way we find out typically that there's a water leak or a water break is the very simple fact that there's probably water shooting out of the ground somewhere. There might be a crack in the street. It might be a very soggy area of somebody's grass that typically isn't wet. Hydrant flushing is a program that we do every year in the city of Westerville. One, it allows us to identify issues with that particular hydrant. From these flushing programs comes different work orders for the maintenance of that actual hydrant itself, as well as the maintenance of our lines, clearing any sediment that may be in the bottom of our lines. It gets flushed out during this process. In the event that a resident does have cloudy water in their lines due to flushing taking place in their area, all they have to do is run their cold water for a while and that will clear up. All of these maintenance activities that we do on our various systems are for one major reason, and it's to stop failure. You know, it's a lot easier for us to go in and do a routine maintenance versus waiting for one of our assets to fail and go in and replace that.
Every Tuesday except holidays, refuse and recycling is collected throughout the city of Westerville. To ensure the highest quality service, Westerville works with Rumpke. Watch how your recycling gets sorted and how the process and partnership benefits our citizens and the environment.
Westerville is excellent at recycling. In 2014, residents recycled 6.4 million pounds of stuff.
Overall, our residents do a great job with recycling. If there's ever a time that one of our residents aren't exactly sure what should go in the recycling bin or not, our website specifies the do's and don'ts.
Obviously, one of the biggest things we look for is to try to put the right materials into the recycling bin or the recycling cart. That makes a huge difference when it comes to recycling. For the most part, Westerville does an excellent job. But like anyone, there's always opportunities to make some improvements. There are some common items that we want to make sure we keep out of the recycling stream. The number one issue that we face at our recycling facility is plastic bags. And that's plastic bags from the grocery store or plastic trash bags. Keep plastic bags out of the recycling stream. That really gums up the system and causes issues, and we're not able to recycle them. So when you place them in your recycling bin, unfortunately they make a long trip to the landfill. Rumpke and Westerville has a great partnership. Rumpke provides trash removal, recycling collection, and yard waste collection services. The recyclables that we collect from the street get transported to Rumpke's regional recycling facility in Columbus. That truck empties its load onto a large open floor known as the tipping floor, and it comes in as a huge pile of mixed material. Once it's emptied out onto the floor, it passes by an area known as the pre-sort station, where a series of workers are pulling out items that don't belong in the mix. One of the first items we pull away from the material is cardboard. To remove cardboard from the system, a series of rotating discs that are spinning allow the cardboard to float across the top of it, and other items fall between the spaces between those discs. And that's how we remove cardboard from the system. The remaining items then pass on to the rest of the facility. Glass continually falls below the entire system. Next, we remove paper from the mix. Again, using rotating discs, similar to what was used to remove cardboard. These rotating discs grab the paper and pull it up over top of the equipment, and the other remaining bottles and cans fall between the spaces. So at this point, we have now effectively removed cardboard and paper from the system, and we're slowly peeling away glass throughout the entire process. What happens next is very exciting. We use a piece of equipment known as an optical scanner to remove plastic bottles and jugs. Using infrared technology, the lighting shines down on the conveyor belt and reads what's passing by below. That then triggers a burst of air that shoots the item off of the conveyor belt. As you may know, aluminum cans are not attracted by a magnet, so we have to use a reverse magnetic force known as an eddy current to repel aluminum cans off of the conveyor belt into a separate storage bunker. What we're left with now are these individual piles of sorted materials. At the end of the day, we are trying to create nice, clean piles of single items. We want a nice, clean pile of paper, a nice pile of cardboard, and bottles and cans. All those items that get mixed together by the resident, our job is to remove them and separate into nice, clean piles that we can then send those items to manufacturers to be made back into new products. Recycling makes a difference. It improves our environment, and it's the right thing to do. And it does take every single family to make a difference. While Rumpke processes 1 million pounds of recycling a day, we know it starts with one house and one person and one family.
You might be surprised to know that on top of everything else the service department does, they also own and maintain 3 cemeteries. In each of those cemeteries, we find compelling stories of Westerville's history.
There are lots of stories out here, and I know people know about the Schrocks, they know about the Metzgers, they especially know about Benjamin Hamby, but there's so much other history that gets forgotten when people die and their families move on and there's nobody left to remember them. Tom Dempsey was a gentleman that lived over on Dempsey Road. He owned the land on both sides of it, which we have found may have actually been owned by Admiral Perry. My name is Sharon Lytle. I am an assistant for the Director of Public Service. This mausoleum was actually built in 1923-24. Back in the 1990s, when everyone was screaming Y2K, I started looking at our cemetery records and realizing that maybe we ought to put them on like a spreadsheet or something. And so I started using research techniques that you do for genealogy, such as census records, marriage records, birth records. Obituaries are a great source of information, and started putting that together. Ruth White Kerfman, she claims, her family history claims that she was actually related to Peregrine White, who was the first child born in the United States.
The service department plays a big role in these cemeteries for the general maintenance of all of them.
We do open and close graves, which is something folks may or may not know.
I know we did an interesting project a few years ago, GPR, which is ground penetrating radar. We did it on all 3 cemeteries, and in the beginning section of Pioneer, which is up by State Street, we found over 17 graves that didn't have headstones that we didn't even know about.
So we're talking 2,000 people.
Oh, there are 5,900 burials here right now in all 3 cemeteries.
One unique service that we provide to the public is access to a map on our city's website where they can actually type in a loved one's name, and it would bring up the location of that person's grave in one of the cemeteries.
This is actually what we call Little Johnny Brown's cradle. I would suspect that he was born and lived at least a few months, maybe more, because when you go to this elaborate setup to do a cradle for a child, it's not somebody that you miscarried. It's somebody that you had that connection with. William actually served, as it says, in the 54th Massachusetts, which was the attack on Fort Wagner. Anyone who's ever seen Glory, that is the story. He was actually one of the 700 to attack Fort Wagner, was shot through the right lung during that attack. I just think that preserving this history is so very important, and I think that's one of my driving forces I like to do, is that I truly believe that the one thing everybody that's ever born has in common is they just want to be remembered. And so that's what I am trying to do, help people get remembered.
There's always the chance that you or someone you know is going to have a question or a maintenance concern regarding the Public Service Department. What's the next step? Glad you asked.
The citizen interaction and where they come into play, it's a huge piece, because you know we're only so many people in our environmental division, and we're out doing daily work. If there's an area that we haven't come across yet, that's where we're going to rely on those residents to let us know. Everything basically is initiated from a service request.
Service requests can come from citizens, they can come from other departments. So let's say, you know, you're a resident, you live on Burns Drive, and you see Burns Drive street name sign has been knocked down, or the stop sign's been knocked down or leaning. You could call the service department, create a service request, and that's what would show up in CityWorks.
In January, we had trouble with our sewer backing up. The toilets wouldn't flush. We have a Christian school here, and created quite a problem. We called our plumber. They went into the clean out and felt that the problem was not on our property. So at about 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, we called the Public Works Department. And by 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock that evening, it was taken care of, and we were back up and running.
We want to follow up with all service requests within 24 to 48 hours, depending on the situation.
We're a church, which is a business, and we need to be open on days that we're supposed to be open. And especially having a Christian school, we cancel school enough because of bad weather. We don't want to cancel it because of bad plumbing.
Our residents are our customers. It is our mission to keep the water on, keep the lights on, keep the water flowing freely, and that's what we're here to do every day.
each of the people in this office every day have the opportunity to improve the quality of life of the citizens, whether it be responding to filling a pothole quickly or helping out with a trash complaint, making sure that that gets resolved as soon as possible. It can make the difference between somebody's having a good day and somebody's having a bad day. So that's really what my mission is to help improve the quality of life of the citizens of Westerville.
And I couldn't be more pleased with how things worked out.
On this episode, we've skimmed the surface of the many Public Service Department duties. If you'd like more information, take a look at the city website, www.westerville.org. And if you see anything within city limits that might require the action of the Service Department, please fill out a service request online or call 614-901-6740. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Focus Westerville.